In the year 1959, the Lubavitcher Rebbe penned a letter to a soldier in the IDF who was going through a very difficult time. He was scared, he was nervous, he went through this depression. And the Rebbe shared with him some incredible perspective. Okay, friends, we are back. The Torah portion of Truma. Truma talks about the donations that were given for the construction of the Temple of God. And the Torah says, "Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'socha." Make for me a sanctuary, and I'll dwell in it. The truth is, parenthetically speaking, it doesn't say I'll dwell in it, v'shachanti b'tocho. It says v'shachanti b'tocham. I'll dwell in them. And our sages point out every single one of us has to be a temple, a sanctuary, an ambassador of God. But let me give you the context for why this sanctuary was necessary. Why can't God just appear to us? The truth is, He tried. At Mount Sinai, there was a mass revelation. 3 million of us experienced the Word of God, and we couldn't handle it. We couldn't handle the inspiration. We were infatuated. We were in love. It felt great. It didn't last. We crashed several weeks later with the sin of the golden calf. That's what happens with inspiration. It feels great, but it doesn't last long. And God says, I want this relationship to be sustainable. So you're going to have to build the temple. You're going to have to build the relationship from the bottom up. And when you're ready, you're going to come to the temple, and you're going to experience me on your terms when you're ready. The truth is, there were two types of sanctuaries, two types of temples. There's the temple, the sanctuary described in our portion, in our Parsha, which was a very temporary establishment. It lasted for 40 years while we were in the desert. Once we made our way into the land of Israel, it lasted another 365 years until King David finally conquered the land for Jerusalem, and his son Solomon built the base of Mikdash, the eternal dwelling for God. That eternal dwelling for God lasts in eternity. Although technically it had been destroyed twice, but the third temple is finally going to be rebuilt. The second temple was rebuilt, and it was in that same spot. And that same spot to this day is regarded as sacred. So there is an element of permanence to it. But in contrast to the sanctuary described in our portion, it was quite temporary, and it was never intended to be permanent. And my question to you is, why does the Torah spend so much time elaborating on the details of how it's to be built if there's no practical significance in the future? It doesn't make a difference. I mean, it's nice history, but that's not what the Torah is here to do. There are times when we feel like we have our life together. We've made it into the land of Israel. We've conquered Jerusalem. We've established the groundwork. The next logical step, build the temple, right? We have our life together. We have our spiritual infrastructure. We have our community. We have our family. We have our financial support. Okay, now I can be an ambassador for God. Now I can fulfill my mission as a Jew. But then there's times where we're still wandering the desert. And our lives are just confusing. We don't know what's next. We're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the elements. We're vulnerable to anti-Semitism. We're vulnerable to the Amalekites, to the Midianites, and to all the other enemies out there. We're vulnerable to the challenges that we have. Our life is anything but stable. We're in a desert and we're feeling empty. And one might think, I'm going to hold off on this temple and just get to safety. And the Torah says no. Specifically in the desert, "Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'socha." Make for me a sanctuary, and I'll dwell in them. Specifically when we're in that desert space, when we're in that empty space, when we're not comfortable, that we still have a responsibility to be an ambassador of light. We still have a responsibility to be an ambassador of God, to be an ambassador of truth, an ambassador of meaning, and to fulfill our mission in this world, to be a sanctuary for God, even in the desert, even when we're going through these difficult challenges, these difficult times. The temporary dwelling in the desert, the Mishkan, sometimes it would be disassembled and reassembled. The base of Mikdash had stability, and that's okay. There's going to be times when we're in that desert, and it's we feel like we have to move now, and our sanctuary is just being torn down. Okay, reassemble it. That's fine. Within the desert, within the difficult times, reassemble it. In the year 1959, the Lubavitcher Rebbe penned a letter to a soldier in the IDF who was going through a very difficult time. He was scared, he was nervous, and I guess it sounds like he went through this depression. And the Rebbe shared with him some incredible perspective. Number one, there's the perspective that the Torah itself gives to soldiers prior to going out to war while we were wandering in the desert, right before we even got to the land of Israel. We're going to have to fight our enemies. And the Torah gives instruction and how to be strong and how to have bitachon and how to have a sense of security and realizing that God is with us. The Torah instructs soldiers, V'haya machanecha kadosh. Your camp must be sacred. We have to realize that God is with us. We are a temple. We are a sanctuary, an ambassador for God, and God is with us. Even when we're in the desert, even when we're in the battle zone, even when we're in our difficult space, God is with us. The Rebbe told this soldier, this IDF soldier, that having this attitude is going to not only help you, but influence the other soldiers who are going through a difficult time. The Rebbe concluded the letter that in regard to your depressive spirit and this desire to be uplifted, you have a mission. You have a purpose. You can bring safety and security and strength to the other soldiers. The Rebbe was telling him, rather than trying to just get rid of your depression and then I'll move on and figure out my life, figure out your life now in the desert, within the emptiness. Figure out that you have a mission. You're an ambassador for God, for trust, for hope, for peace, for love, right now, within the storm, within the difficulty. This soldier has a responsibility to realize that he's on a mission from God, not only to fight for his people, but to help his immediate surroundings feel confident. And when we feel like we are that sanctuary, we are that beacon of light to help other people, to strengthen other people, we're going to be able to build our sanctuary, even in the desert, even within the difficulties. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.